There must be something in the air, oh Lord, I fear. I feel like I'm coming down with virus. Hey, temperature rising, what am I seeing? I need Visine just to see things clearer.
But at different hospitals, some of them give your children formula if you say yes to it. So I was opposing because how dare you give the child anything other than breast milk? I am superwoman, I should have it all.
We sort of expect that you should know.
Yeah.
And that's very naive of us because we're the ones who know. We have the knowledge. We're taught about it.
I was Yanni left, and center being threatened with being fired. And they don't even do it directly because you can sue them, right? And the boss, who's also female, told me, sasa lakini uko na mimba. And I was like, sinitaza ama nakana mtoto forever.
People have an employment contract. We have a law that tells you that you have to provide a breastfeeding station. People are doing it in the toilet. People who are lucky enough to have cars do it in their cars. People are doing it like almost anywhere they can be able.
Think of a vaccine. Come inject me with your vaccine.
Formula ni gani? What's this story about formula, and why is it that we don't really want to promote formula, and why do we always push so that mothers can exclusively breastfeed? There's many things. Number one is that breast milk cannot be duplicated, okay? That's just the real. You can't bite the formula of breast milk. What God gave you or what is in human milk is just superior to nothing that can be produced in a lab. Although a lot of people are trying, but their efforts have really been in vain. They still fall short, but they're trying, okay? And this is the thing, breastfeeding and breast milk is actually something you need to learn. So mothers have this notion that when you give birth that you already supposed to know how to breastfeed. They expect you to already have that know-how, but it's actually a skill and a technique. And if you keep it on Ask Dr. Rain, there's another episode that we did talk about breastfeeding and the techniques and how to latch. And I want to make sure that you guys go check that out too. We'll put the link below so that you can know how is it I'm going to be able to actually maximize on breastfeeding. But you might ask, why the big hype? Why is breast milk so important? Breast milk is important because of many things. Number one, breast milk is always changing, okay? So the first few days of breast milk, you really have a small quantity, but you have a super food that is called colostrum. This happens within the first 3 days. The volumes will be on the lower side, but you'll have so much richness, so many calories, so many immune bodies, your antibodies that you get from the mother, which will protect the babies from future diseases. And these diseases include like pneumonia and diarrheal diseases when the baby is very young. So when you're a neonate, 1 month, and that prevents things like diarrhea from happening, all in your breast milk, okay? Breast milk also contains what we call prebiotics, okay? They have its own flora. In your gut, you have immune cells that are very responsible for your immune system, and it contains good organisms, good bacteria that will help get into your baby's gut and really protect them from a lot of diseases. On top of that, breast milk has so many advantages for the mother. When you breastfeed, you actually reduce your risk of developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So that's a very big plus on the women. It also improves your bond with the child. It's very important so that the mother and child have this bond. It helps with them psychologically, so emotionally as well. It creates this attachment, and that just improves your well-being in general. And we can keep going on and on about breast milk. We spoke about the benefits of breastfeeding. I had an episode where I sat down with Toto Talks, Dr. Wakaba, and I also sat down with Fee, and we spoke about breastfeeding. So if you haven't checked that episode and you missed out on the good things about breastfeeding and the challenges about being a new mom, make sure you go check out that link as well so that you can know all about breastfeeding. So today on the show, I will be having the one and only Amina Rabar, who will share her experience about how it was for motherhood, working, being this super worker, from being an MC, doing radio, doing TV. She just does everything. I really don't know when she sleeps. So I want to find out, how did she get to actually breastfeed, or what actually happened during her journey. So keep it tuned, keep it Ask Dr. Rain. Check out the socials. Make sure you subscribe and you check out the other episodes, and always keep it Ask Dr. Rain for the best information when it comes to health. What's good, people, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Rain. It's your host again, Dr. Rain, and with me on the set to talk more about breastfeeding and their experiences as a mom who has to breastfeed and juggle so many things is the one and only, the legendary, the woman of many hats, the queen herself, Amina Rabar. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, Brian.
Can I just go and chocha and say, like, the first thing you told me is like, I don't do interviews.
I don't do interviews, and the first one I do, I'm talking about boobs. Can you imagine? Surely.
It's what I do. It's what I do. I break exclusives. That's what I do. Thank you so much
But I'm here.
for coming through. I hope you've been good.
I'm good.
How's the going? COVID?
Man, I give thanks. I am very much employed. I have more than one job, which I think is a blessing during times
True.
like these. And so if there's one thing I've taken out of this entire period, it's just being very gratitude. It's
It's
just
a must, yeah.
yeah, just when we think like things are really hard, then it gets harder, then it gets harder. And every time you look back, you're like, why that time I was happy, but I was still complaining. And now things are even harder. So it just tells you that you should be grateful and try and just be positive. So that's how I've been
Positive
doing.
vibes.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Yeah, it is a crazy time. It's pandemic season and everything is changing. We don't know where we're going as a world, as a country.
Yeah, it's tough.
And
Can I just say I'm so happy that you're doing this? I remember telling you that you should do a doctor's show on TV or on radio. Remember in the first time I introduced you to John, I was like, oh, Brian, you should definitely do this because of your cadence when it came to rap. There was just a vibe to you, and I was like, you are a doctor. I didn't believe you. Can you imagine? I never believed him for months.
Yeah, a lot of
I
people
thought you were
don't.
lying.
Yeah.
He was coming with scrubs for an interview to do a freestyle. I'm like, what? Until there was a lady giving birth. I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh, you actually remember.
I will never forget it. I will never forget.
It's crazy
So I'm so happy you're doing this. I'm so
knew
proud.
me I remember you knew me as a rapper first.
As a
like
rapper.
we used to come to Capital FM and all those things.
Yeah.
And then whoops, he's now a doctor and he's doing this. And then we met again.
Yeah.
Now when you are a mom and
Yes.
you're calling me and you're like, to me this, to me that.
Oh
so
my
it's crazy.
gosh.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I guess we're just manifesting, and it also goes to show like just time. It takes time. So
Yes.
I'm glad to have you on my own show. The first time I had you,
Glad to be here.
was on TV when I was doing the doctor show, and now we are doing it here live.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And that just goes to show people don't understand. Like I like to keep I network and I keep my relationships very close.
Yes,
so
he's
I
such a
feel,
close person. Jeez.
yes, my circle is very, very small. Karibu, welcome to my circle. Okay, now that we've the way you spoke about hardships and COVID-19 and things like that, I want to take you back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I want people to understand that the whole conversation of motherhood is not as easy as it seems, because a lot of people think once you give birth, you should know exactly what you're doing. It's a natural instinct. And I keep telling people, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing so many episodes because I want to show people that it's not something you're born with. It's actually something that you learn on the go and you learn on the fly as a mom. So for you, when you just got to me, how was your breastfeeding experience? Like,
oh, wow.
was it something new? Was it like in a new world?
What a whole new world! It was crazy, Brian. It was something that, to be honest, no one can ever prepare you for it. No matter how many books you read, no matter how many documentaries you watch,
Exactly.
being in that space and being in that moment is so different. And for women, I'm so sure it's so different for dads, but for women, like now for me, it started way before the breastfeeding. It started way before pregnancy. It started when I was struggling to get pregnant, because you think, you think it's just a 1 minute, 1 day, 2 week, 2 months thing, and then you get pregnant. No, It takes time. And then finally you do, and then I had a very difficult pregnancy because of morning sickness. Was 20, I don't even know why they call it morning sickness. It was 24 hours.
It's 24 hours a day, yeah?
Yeah, so this was for 6 months. And then after that I was like, oh, it's a breeze. And then now the bath. So I'm like, it's just so much to it. But when it came to breastfeeding, I remember for me, so day 1, day 2, day 3 colostrum, right?
Yeah.
Which was good. It was there.
The yellow
happy,
stuff, the good yellow stuff.
Yes. So
gold.
right after birth, first of all, you give birth immediately. I don't know why everyone just talks about the good side of breastfeeding, the good side of motherhood, the good side of giving birth. I'm like, it traumatized the life out of me. I'm so confused as to how everyone else looks like they just blended in well.
Exactly.
It was stressful. So here we are, colostrum, then now we are breastfeeding. When you give birth at different hospitals, some of them give your children formula if you say yes to it. So I was opposed to it because how dare you give the child anything other than breast milk? I am superwoman. I should have it all.
You know, I'm part of those people. I'm that person who says like, why are you on formula? You should be breastfeeding.
Yeah.
But then again, there's so much shock, there's so much trauma. You just get hit with all these experiences.
Yeah.
And at the hospital, did they teach you how to breastfeed, or did they tell you about your breast milk?
That's the other thing. No one teaches you. No one was teaching me anything. They were just like, the baby needs to be breastfed now.
And they expect you to know how to do it.
You to know. So now I had done classes before, so at least I had an idea. But then, like I said, the classes were so different from the real, like, here's a baby now, and they're like, oh, he needs to latch on the nipple. And so you try to put the baby to latch on it, but then they're not latching, and you're like, is there something I'm doing differently? And then as a result of that, you start getting stressed. You're frustrated that maybe the baby isn't feeding enough, and then that stresses you out. And then the more stressed you are, the less, milk production takes place, I guess. And
that's it.
It's
that's
such
exactly
a cycle.
Yeah.
So you're stressed about it, and the more stress you have, the more you can breastfeed. So I went to even see, this is now after we left the hospital. I was fine, and then after a couple of, I think maybe 2-3 weeks later, I just started feeling like I'm just not feeding him enough. And I think, it depends, it ranges. Different babies, I think some consume more milk, I guess. And my son was just in need of that milk. And
he always
lost.
wanted, and you felt like he's not
getting enough.
That's
and I was
so common.
stressed. I would cry about it so many times. I feel like there's something wrong with me as a mom. I'm like, mama wengine wote wanatoa maziwa mpaka mtoto yani ako 5 years sana. Na mimi niko hapa na feel ni kama mtoi hashibi. So even as I would express, because you want to express so that you can sort of like just check how much milk it is that you're producing per day, or how much. It was just easier for me that way. So then I'm trying, because I had work after that. So I'm trying to see, and I'm like, this bottle is just not enough. And it was such a stressful time. Please remember, this stress has started from way before pregnancy.
So is this like the first 3 months? Would you say this is the first 3 months?
Definitely the first 3 months. When I was at the hospital, it wasn't bad. When I left the hospital, it wasn't bad. And then like maybe 3 weeks to a month after, I just started feeling like, oh my gosh, and it really frustrates you as a mom, because you take it like it's an individual problem. Like it's an Amina issue.
Yeah.
Because everyone else seems fine, and then no one else, advises you on formula. But you see, it's not that it's terrible. It's just that if you are in a situation where 1, 2, 3, 4 is happening, then maybe to supplement, it's supposed to support the main. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
This is the main act, but then these are supporting acts.
That's the thing. So here's the thing with breastfeeding. It's not just you. I always say, my cliche line is, it takes a village for a mother to successfully breastfeed. Number one is, what I've identified is that there's definitely a gap. There is a problem with us healthcare workers. We don't give you guys enough time. We don't teach you a bit better, or give you the education, especially when the baby is just born. We sort of expect that you should know.
Yeah.
And that's very naive of us, because we're the ones who know. We have the knowledge. We're taught about it. But we always expect them like, oh, unafaa kujua breast, umemnyonyesha. But we're not there to say, okay, let me see how you're breastfeeding. So very few people do this. When you're lucky enough to have a pediatrician, some of them go through this journey with you, and they help you how to latch. Some hospitals have a program where they're supposed to teach you, and that's actually step one.
The rate was so expensive, but I couldn't say,
Yeah, that's why guys like us are coming. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. And then the second thing is that one of the most common things that leads mothers transitioning from breast milk or introducing now formula. And remember, exclusive breastfeeding is what we say, like the holy grail, like breast milk, don't give your child anything else but breast milk up to 6 months. That's what the pediatrician will tell you. And this is embedded in your head. You're like, oh my God, if I don't breastfeed my child, she's going to get sick. Because this is all we tell you. We tell you, like, if you don't give them breast milk, they're going to get sick. They're going to end up in hospital. It's the best thing for them, blah, blah, blah. But now, when you're told to actually switch, when you feel like I don't have enough milk, my baby is not getting, they're crying, I'm breastfeeding, but they're still crying, they want more. One of the things is the thing of saying, I feel like I don't have enough milk. And that's why it's so important to always go for your pediatric checks every month. You have to go every month so that we can actually check, is this baby growing enough weight? Because sometimes, in actual fact, unless you're expressing your milk to know what quantities you're giving, you will never know. And you can't do that. You'll plop the baby on your boob and baby will start breastfeeding. And hopefully, if we say 15 minutes, as long as it's a good 15 minutes, then they've got enough milk. But trust me, that 15 minutes is a fight. From what I get from mothers and the experience of they latch, then 5 minutes they're out, mara they don't want, mara they're full, mara they don't want the boob, they just want the bottle that you've expressed in. So there's a lot of challenges behind that. And when did you actually transition? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I'm really trying my best? And this is the thing with moms, they really go hard on themselves and they really guilt trip themselves, like, I'm not good enough, especially new moms. And the stress, once you introduce stress, then your milk production goes down. Anxiety, milk production goes down. So it's really a vicious cycle. You stress yourself, milk goes down. Milk is going down again, then you're still more stressed, then you're like, okay, now I have to introduce formula. But now when you introduce the formula, there's this guilt that comes. You're like, oh my God, I have done the worst. I have sinned. I have introduced formula. How was that?
It was so stressful. I remember we had to have a whole conversation. My mom is the one who had to sit me down and talk to me about now formula and, to tell me, it's not the end of the world. You're not killing your child. I'm like, when you read online and you Google a lot, it's all types of things that you find, right? Because it's not that everything online is factual. So you read all of these stories of children being this and being that, affecting their brain, affecting their growth, affecting their development, their speech, their what. So there's all this that is put behind breast milk that you think, oh my God, I'm already letting him down before he even starts to really live. You know what I mean? And so I think it was around 5 or 6 months that I finally was like, John, I think I might lose my mind. I was, there's also postpartum depression that a lot of moms go through. And I had baby blues. I don't think I had postpartum depression, but I had baby blues where I just didn't want anyone else to take care of him. And then I had to go to work, but I just felt like I couldn't trust anyone else. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and she was there for us all the time, and I felt like I'm just not being a good mom. And it was really, really difficult. Now, the other thing, remember, with breast milk, your diet is also very important. Now, with the kind of thermoses that we're given here in Africa, in my mind, I already was given notice at some of my jobs, because when they found out I was pregnant, they were like, man, like, she's definitely gonna, quit her job and she wants to work. And I remember even my radio boss at the time told me, there's a show that you usually do on Fridays, and we're thinking maybe you should just do Monday to Thursday. And I remember crying, telling him, how is this a conversation? Why are we not talking about this? How could you just dismiss me because now I'm a mother? Like, when
Wow, you actually experienced
how
that.
do you stop working? And I've never worked harder. So now that's when people talk about, how many jobs you do. I now did all this that you see because before me being a mom, I wasn't really a brand. Afterwards, it was all to be like, because now I am a mom, so I shouldn't work and I can't work and I'm somehow disabled from doing things. I don't understand how that even comes together. So it was very frustrating. And my mom is the one who sat me down and was like, listen, you're taking on a lot of work and you're taking on more and more jobs and it's becoming even more stressful for you. Why don't you consider formula? We had to have a conversation with my husband. We had to have a meeting with my siblings. It was a whole thing because it was really getting to me. On this other end, they're telling me that now that I'm a mom, I, should just stay at home and quit everything, or they expect me to because that's what they think would happen. And then on this other end, I'm not feeling like I'm such a good mom because I feel like I'm doing so much, and it's also frustrating. And then in the middle is someone who's just given birth, a new mom with no nanny. Nanny drama is a whole other show, you know. So there's all this going on, which can be quite stressful. So eventually I was just like, you know,
The
Mom,
system lets you down. You see, the thing is, we have to support, like I said, it's a village. You have to have workplace support. So just from the conversation alone, already these people are stressing you.
What?
You're already stressed out. You don't feel like you're producing enough breast milk. Then they're adding stress to tell you that your job might go. And remember, the job is providing, you're trying to create an environment where you're providing the best for your child. And then they're telling you because you're pregnant. So you start to feel like, now because I'm a mom, I'm supposed to feel
Thank you.
less.
Oh my gosh. So, Brian,
you know?
thank you for saying. So people found out I was pregnant on this stupid ass blog. Can I say that?
Yeah, say it.
Anyway, so this blog,
free.
so some blog wrote about it, even after I told them don't write about it. But it's okay. So I was maybe
My
7
blogger,
months
she
pregnant.
down.
So I'm 7 months pregnant. So between 7 months when people found out, my bosses started finding out, between 7 months to when I give birth, I was left, right and center being threatened with being fired. And they don't even do it directly because you can sue them, right? But then you just see people being hired or auditions happening for your position.
Wow.
Imagine. So you just see like in a CJ over here, they're like, so we're looking for a doctor to come and host a show. And you're like, that sounds very similar. So they would, you know, people would be auditioning for my positions. People would come in to fill in for my shows. They'd ask me way before I was supposed to go for my maternity if I'm healthy enough or okay enough to go. And it wasn't in like with good intention. It wasn't like they were so concerned and worried about me. No. And this is all of them. This is TV, this is radio, like everyone. And I even was supposed to start a new show. And the boss, who's also female, told me, sasa lakini uko na mimba. And I was like, sinitaza ama nakana mtoto forever. So the show was supposed to start in August. I told her I will be ready. I was giving birth in June. And shout out to few people like David Sanders, who gave me Coke Studio Africa, who really believed. I went there, I had just given birth. My baby was 8 days old, and I went for the audition with that massive pad. You know that pad? And that's how I went to do my first VO. And David Sanders didn't care that I had just given birth. I went with John. I still had to because I didn't have a nanny. And he really helped me and pushed me a lot during that time. And shout out to people, with brands like Airtel, who, even though they knew, they didn't care, so I still did my work. And so to other brands who, just because you see a lady is expectant, now is when you're thinking of firing them, their lives are about to take a whole new turn. This is not the moment where you throw me out in the cold. This is when you pull me in.
Exactly. You're supposed to support me.
Yes.
Like a woman, we're fighting for women to have equal spaces in when it comes to employment, when it comes to work, we're trying to push. Like you're such a force. And here is somebody, a woman who's making all these big moves, instead of you supporting them, so that they can also fight for being, your place as a woman in this industry that is really male dominated. I mean, what industry or what sector is not male dominated?
Yeah, none.
So they should support you. And actually, this is in the law. There's the Constitution. We have a very nice document, like my sister likes to call it. We have a very good document, but it's not a constitution because we don't follow it. Like there's the Health Act, which 71 and 72, which should actually support. There's actually supposed to, on top of them, like sort of doing you a favor, they're supposed to create a room for you. So if, let's say, you continue with Coke Studio or whatever, they're supposed to create a space for you so that anytime you need to express you're comfortable, you have your own private room.
Do you know where people do it? In the toilets.
In the toilets. Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, people have an employment contract. We have a law that tells you that you have to provide a breastfeeding station. People are doing it in the toilet. People who are lucky enough to have cars do it in their cars. People are doing it like almost anywhere they can be able to. And sometimes they don't even have somewhere to store. So they express and they throw away this important nutrition for the child.
Actually, it's so sad. I don't know of any companies that have a room that you can do that.
Okay,
perhaps
now they are.
Maybe there's Safaricom, I think.
Safaricom is really doing a good job.
Because they even have a play area for kids and stuff.
Exactly.
Other than them, I don't know about any. None of the ones I've ever worked at have one. And It's so weird now after you become a mom is when you're wondering, hiya, and why don't we have 1, 2, 3, 4?
And you're entitled, actually in an 8-hour working day, you're entitled 1 hour of breastfeeding time, and you're entitled 1 hour lunch break, meaning you're working for 8 hours, but the 6 hours you're working, the 2 hours is lunch break and breastfeeding break. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people are still pushed, and they are supposed to be allowed flexible time. Now, this is now post-COVID, people now understand working from home. So you should actually have an option of, if you are pregnant and you're breastfeeding, to work from home. Like if you're on radio, and now with the technology, why can't an employer just set you up at home, have your setup, do your 4 hours on radio, online, deliver your show, but you're in a space where you're at home, you're taking care of your child.
You remember I was almost being fired, Brian. I suggested.
Yeah. And now COVID, that's what people are doing now when COVID came. Guys, because guys started catching COVID in the studios. And then they're like, guys, okay, now you can work from home. You're like, okay, so I could have done this all along. It's just that employers, this thing, capitalism is so bad. You want someone to clock in, clock out, and you're not thinking, instead of you supporting Amina as much as possible and seeing that when you support her getting big, growing the brand, returning the revenue for your company, that's what it's all about. And it's the reason I wanted you is because you're so unique. You have so many different like hustles, you have different sort of like employers per se.
Yeah.
And most mothers, working mothers would have their usual contract, 9 to 5 thing, and they're also experiencing something similar. But I wanted to get just your perspective. Now that we know there's so much systemic issues,
so many.
We're not supporting the mom enough.
No.
So the system, the healthcare worker, we've discovered we're not educating you guys. We're not encouraging you people enough. We're not having enough support at the workplace to support mothers. So that's the reality. Somebody is going to end up giving the child formula. And mothers need to understand, I'm not here promoting formula, but because our systems have failed you, formula might be the only alternative and the best thing. And I want to know, when did you make that transition?
I told you at 5, 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 5, 6 months. And I tried. And I remember the whole time I was just like, they said 6 months. I don't care. They said 6 months. So you struggle, man, and then it was insane. I don't even remember sleeping, because like I said, I'm pregnant, and then now all of a sudden I'm being let go. Mm-hmm. So then after I gave birth, from day 0, I was ready to work, and was supposed to stay home for 40 days. I was just out there, I was grinding. I was like, I don't know anyone who's going to come and give me money to take care of my son.
Exactly.
Seth Mutungi used to joke and say that I work like a single mom. And I think for me, I just wanted to prove that just because you're a mom, it doesn't mean you can't work.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started taking on all of those jobs. That's when I started becoming a proper MC and becoming a proper host and doing voiceovers properly and just focusing on that. And I remember even my diet, I wasn't drinking the Ujis, the amount that I really wanted to, because I was like, now I'm going to add weight because you want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's everyone.
You're trying to lose,
because you again will be let go, because.
And for you, it's so much pressure because you are a public figure. It's like
I think it wasn't for how I look; it was how I look on screen. Because they said there was a job I was doing at the time, not here in Kenya, and they said, you can't look a certain way. And it wasn't for me to start feeling bad that that's how people are supposed to look. I'm like, mi nataka job. Mimi natafuta pesa, sirudi Islands, acha nikae hapa, mimi nataka kufanya bidii.
Why is the entertainment industry so harsh, like so tough on women, especially when it comes to pregnancy? I spoke to Fee. We had an interview with Fee, and she broke on the interview that she was about to get signed to Universal. Like, here she was, Universal, deals are on the table.
Yeah.
And as soon as they found out she's pregnant, there was an email, they're like, yeah, it's okay, it's okay, we don't have a problem. We support, pregnancy, we support mothers. And then all of a sudden, guys just ghosted her. They just went quiet. So now this is like an opportunity. That's a big deal for an artist, getting signed to a label, and you have a baby on your way. So like, oh, everything will be sorted.
Man, I think that's what I will say.
The industry?
The industry is so messed up, when it comes to women, and I just never have time to feel sorry for myself or to throw a pity party. This is just how it is.
Reality.
I think one of the things I will advise young women when they're coming into the industry, at that time when you're ready to become a mom, I think these are one of those fields where you just sort of have to plan, be prepared for it. Like, it's so hard for this kind of industry. You can't have an oops baby because you could lose so much. It's just so much on the line for you. And until things like these are so, talked about, and I think, companies start understanding that this is natural and there's nothing wrong with it. It's, like it's
and
not
it's
a
your
disease
right.
I'm bringing to the it's my right.
And it's your right.
I remember crying in my boss's office and I was like, this is supposed to be the most amazing, this magical time of my life. And I'm so depressed. I was so sad because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna fire me. Like and then every time I'd ask them, they'd be like, no. Amina, why would you think that? I'm like, because all these people are coming in to do my job and I've said I'm fine. We can come back in even just give me a month.
Wow.
I was like, maximum give me a month. I even asked, can I work from home? So I'm telling John, I'm like, John, you have to set up like a studio mock thingy for me.
Wow.
He's like, no problem. I'm losing weight. They had to postpone my birth like 2-3 times because I was always underweight. I had no blood, I had no this, I had no that. Like those are something I was lacking because of how much stress I have. Can you imagine, here is a baby coming. You don't know how much money to plan for, especially the birth. It could be complicated.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 300 to 500,000. Then you're hearing someone was in the hospital the other day, they paid almost $1 million, Bob. So you don't even know
what's gonna happen
just with the birth alone.
Yeah.
And then you want to buy them things and do shopping. Muslims, we don't shop before. So we shop after. And that is the time you're supposed to be happy. And then they're all telling you how you could lose everything. So, and I hadn't planned. So I think that's something I should tell people. Have a little something, like just be prepared that things could go left.
Yeah.
If it does, it is what it is. When you get to that position in management, then maybe you change the rules and you change the laws. If you're a woman who has children and you're in a position of power and you've not done anything to make your business, more comfortable and relaxing for moms. You're not talking to the dads. Even men want to take some time off.
Yeah.
There's some that don't get that paternity leave.
Yeah.
And it's really, really tough. I don't know why it is like this for women. So I think it can only change when we have men.
That's
like
why we're
get
having
it.
this conversation.
Yeah.
We want to get this going because we already have systems in place. They just need to be followed. And it's so sad that the system, the industry didn't a place where you're generating the revenue, like whether it's your industry in media, whether you're working in a bank,
madness.
you're generating people money and you don't want to support these guys.
It's not even just about the money, Brian, which is true, you are generating money, but it should also just be on a human level.
Exactly.
Like for humanity's sake. And I remember it was so interesting now when I became a mom and when now I was going through all of those issues with pregnancy and with blood. That's when now John started, changing rules and started understanding, maybe even me here at my workplace, maybe I should do 1, 2, 3, 4. And he would see how I would be denied time off, or I would be denied like when I have to take Tumi to hospital and they can't, and I can't feel bad. Then now he has to go. And he was like, oh my gosh, that is so unfair. So now he had to also work on himself. And that's okay, but like you've seen it. And I'm like, do something about it. And CJ's now seen it and he has a production company. And so with the female producers, because production is such a crazy schedule, they work 24/7, Sunday to Sunday. They have odd hours of the night they work because that's when it's quiet and they can shoot. So it's very demanding. It's a very tasking job. And if you decide that's your career, you shouldn't be punished for it, that now you can't grow a family or you can't have that life that you want because this is the life you kind of chose. It's just everyone should just take accountability and hold themselves responsible and call yourself out. What are you doing? And so now I'm trying to change the narrative. I'm trying to talk to people about it. I'm so happy that you're a guy starting this convo.
Yeah, I felt like it can't just come from a woman. I experienced it myself, just being a pediatrician in training, always being around kids, advising mothers about breastfeeding, lactation, and all that stuff. It's just so important because I just want mothers to know, if the system has failed you, don't blame yourself so much. Don't take it too hard on yourself because you get so stressed and then you get stressed and your milk production goes low.
Yeah, because I'm imagining if we're happy and we're home all day and of course you have enough milk, you know what I mean? If you're just relaxed and you're not thinking about, I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna this.
But in life, how does that happen? With the way systems are.
Man, but
it doesn't happen.
I envy countries where people can take a year, 2 years off. What?
Well, that's Germany. We're actually better off than the US. The US, it's 6 weeks maternity only because the US is the home of capitalism. For them, everything is just business. And I think it was important for us just to understand that people don't turn to formula because it's just a choice. It's usually based on the information they're exposed to. It's based on systematic failures that don't support the breastfeeding mother, don't support the working breastfeeding mom or the nursing mom. And it's important that when they do decide to switch or to add something, or they feel like they don't have enough breast milk, formula is the best bet. It's the safest bet compared to things like cow's milk, because cow's milk can really injure your, especially if it's a very small baby. And we're going to have a conversation about that when you have a premature baby and what they need, the type of formula, the type of milk. So people should avoid cow's milk. They shouldn't introduce cow's milk. I know, especially for you, cultural people will say, they might say goat milk. They might say give them this type of
I think
milk.
it shags, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and they'll
Definitely.
tell you, give the child. They need to understand that milk is meant for that particular, whether it's a
Animal.
cow,
Yeah.
whether it's a camel,
A
especially
calf.
the 1 month. It's got, that milk usually has a lot of sodium, and this can crash the kidneys, the baby's kidneys, and then they can get dehydrated, they can get into kidney failure, a whole other stuff. So if they're going to introduce, as long as you're not giving plain pure cow's milk, also remember the way milk is produced in this country, we don't know how many antibiotics are going there. We don't have regulations the way we do have in the West, where you're like, when I take this milk, I'm assured there isn't aflatoxins, there isn't antibiotics. You buy with faith, you know, I'm buying this brand with faith, and you don't know what else is in it. So the best thing is your human milk, and then the other safest option would be formula. And I'm so glad we had this conversation, and really, like, I feel like I know you, but this information coming out today, like just that experience with your employer,
Yeah, I hope
jumping
it helps
around and
someone.
things. Thank you so much for
I don't
opening
even,
up.
man, I'm not saying it to ask for pity. I say it because
Yeah.
I know that there'll be younger TV and radio presenters who come up and they'll have such high hopes and dreams for the industry. And I'm just like, this is the reality of
Yeah,
what
let's just tell
it's-
them how it
what
is.
it looks like.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's important for you to just plan yourself mentally, emotionally, and just financially. Just know, hey, this is not one of those, it's not like law, like you're not gonna go and come back. Like
Yeah.
you could go and coming back, someone else could take your job, and that's pretty stressful. So you should just need to be ready. And formula is also expensive, so it's not like everyone can just go and get
Exactly.
it.
And it's even more expensive now. They've added the tax. So that's it. Amina, thank you so much. This conversation was so necessary. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You've heard from Amina Rabar. Look, I know you people have this thing or notion that celebrities are living this fabulous life. People go through it. Just going through her experience, she's probably going through it more than some of you people, but she still managed. She has a healthy boy. Tumi, shout out to Tumi. If you see this, Tumi, shout out to you. You're doing great. I'm hearing about your gold medals and everything, so that's beautiful. And remember, this is not about promoting formula. This is about explaining the systematic failure that leads to a lot of working mothers resorting to formula, which is the only alternative to breast milk. And it does come with a price. So make sure you go check out my videos on breastfeeding so that you are successfully breastfeeding and not resorting to formula. This has been another episode, Ask Dr. Rain, on breastfeeding with the very special Amina Rabar, who's blessed us on this show. Peace out, guys. Make sure you stay alert, stay aware, wear a mask, social distance, all that good stuff. Stay safe. Peace.